Now, with the Canadians, I don't understand. We were always told that, hey, it's hard and fast. We had one client who had signed their compromesso before January 1st, 2023, and they had to go up to Tuscany to an Otayo to complete that purchase. However, it seems like there have been two couples that have come in and purchased a fully renovated place in Santa Domenica Talao. And I'm going, how the heck did that happen? And is that the same in Praia Mare? Is it the same in Scalea? Scalea, I think, has 11,000 people, population. So can you expand
Mhm.
a little bit on that? Because it's a bit of a gray area, even for
Yeah.
me at this point.
The Canadian ban is definite restriction to buy properties is definitely more recent than the Australian legislation. So what we have seen now, obviously, I don't know the specifics of those cases, but I can guess. I
Okay.
can guess based on what I've seen and some conversations I had with Italian notaries throughout Italy, and during the past 2 years that this ban has been enforced. For so basically, initially there was this pretty wide belief that if you were buying in a small community under 10,000 people, with a population under 10,000 people, the ban would not apply. And there were some notaries who were going with it and were kind of guessing that that would be an opportunity because the logic in Canada is, once again, if you need to look at the law and interpret the law based on all the information available. In Canada, the reason why the ban came up was because real estate was going through the roof. The cost of real estate was going through the roof, and that was making it hard for Canadians to afford a home. So they figured out that, however, that was a dynamic happening, especially in larger demographic areas, so like cities or bigger towns, whereas smaller areas actually were not suffering from the same dynamic, and actually would have enjoyed a little bit more money influx and attention. So they decided to leave out of the ban areas like you have seen in Italy with many of the Italian programs trying to help underdeveloped areas. So, according to that logic, it seemed only normal to go with it and interpret it as an exception and let people buy in small villages with less than 10,000 people population. So, however, more recently, I've seen a shift, and notaries now are less prone to go with it. Also, because it is the systems, the government and administrative systems are very different. And I've read actually a guideline from the Italian National Notary Association, according to which they do not really encourage notary, to put it mildly, to finalize transactions, even if the real estate is smaller communities, smaller villages, just because if notaries were called to justify that, it would be hard, if not impossible, to really create a parallel between the Italian demographic areas and Canadian. Because in Italy, there are communes, and then there is the province or metropolitan area, whereas in Canada is a completely different system. So it might not be really comparable and compatible to apply the exception. So this guy's seeing notaries to withdraw from that option, and perhaps whomever got in. And so at this point probably will be grandfathered, also because the ban in Canada is supposed to be temporary. But what I've seen is that actually some notaries now are accepting to let people let Canadians buy a home in Italy through a newly incorporated Italian company. So what they're doing is you can incorporate a company in Italy and have the Italian company buy the property. And there has been a long debate over this opportunity because in the Canadian ban, it says that foreign companies cannot buy residential units in Canada either. And even if the company is a Canadian company, it will be considered for the purposes of the ban as a foreign company if it is fully or mostly owned by a non-Canadian citizens. So everyone thought that buying through a company would not be really feasible or legitimate. However, the Italian National Association of Notaries have gone through a very extensive study, and they came up with a reasoning according to which, in their opinion, notaries could certify a transaction if a Canadian person established an Italian company in Italy. However, when people come to me under that idea, I say, "Hey, I want to do this." I warn them that it might be very expensive, unfortunately, because for several reasons. First, to incorporate a company in Italy is time consuming and expensive, way more expensive than in other jurisdictions, unfortunately. Same reason, civil law countries, just more bureaucracy. We talk about thousands of euros. Then also the bookkeeping. It's extremely rare for Italians to run their own LLC. It's like the bookkeeping of their LLC. You have to factor 300-400 a month euros a month in bookkeeping alone. Plus, there is a ton of bureaucracy of filing with the Italian Chamber of Commerce. It's just expensive. And then, if you want to transfer the property, according to this guideline from the Italian Notary Association, you cannot even transfer the property to the shareholders, the owners of the company eventually. So you kind of locked in. You can only resell it as a company. Plus, when you buy a property through a company, you cannot have first home tax reduction. You pay taxes on the purchase price instead of the assessment value. So you pay 2-3 times the taxes you pay if you were buying as an individual. So usually it's not a particularly viable option unless you're really buying as an investment and you want to, renovate it and run short-term rental business and things like that. Then it might make sense because the whole cost will make sense for write-offs and deductions and operations in general.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, okay. That pretty much answers my question. Some people basically kind of got lucky. So some of our Canadian clients.
Yes, that sums it up pretty well. Yes.
Okay, well that helps. That helps. So I now know what to tell people when they ask me about that. Some people slid under the wire. Very well done. But I think the wire's gotten a whole lot lower. So yeah, it's a bit of a problem.
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, yes. Now, once again, we don't know the specifics. It is possible that those people might have uh, figured out that there was a European citizenship. They were, they were able to get residency real quick somehow. That's also an option. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we get residency instrumentally for other purposes. And, you get residency, you can buy a vehicle, right? Like there are so many things you can do. So sometimes people will take residency and just to be entitled to some other bureaucratic steps.
That's actually a very, very good point, because we talked about in our last video, we talked about, the center of vital interest and the tax residency and that sort of thing. That might make sense to do, get a rental house and apply for elective residence visa and permesso di soggiorno and whatnot.
Yeah.
You get that, and then you can purchase a house. So that's an option for everybody. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, well, is there more that you wanted to talk to? Because I have two other questions that people commented on the channel, and they were good questions about our last video, and I do want to address them if you have time. Do you have a minute to answer a couple of questions?
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, was there anything else you wanted to say about Australian or Canadian or anything like that?
What I recommend is really talk with a notary, definitely. And if you don't have a chance, sometimes it might be tough to get a hold of a notary because, as we said, they're so busy. Usually, they're very busy. They're very few for each district. So the next best thing you can do is go to a lawyer who focuses on these type of matters, who can even pre-screen you and tell you if you have good chances and if it is worth it to talk with a notary. But definitely. Make sure that your commitment, if you're committing because you want to take the property off the market, has that contingency clause. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important. Okay, great, great. And we talked about compromisos till we were blue in the face. So I think they all understand
Yes.
that. Okay, well,
Yes.
the first question on the last video comes from somebody who wanted to know that if you pay the 7% flat tax, does that qualify as a credit against US taxes? In other words, does USA recognize this as an expense or a tax, and can you credit that against your US taxes?
Yeah, obviously. Now, let me tell you, I'm not US licensed.
Okay.
So everything I can share is based on experience and practice because I work with a number of US CPAs. So in general, if you are paying 7%, it is because according to the treaty, the treaty says that you need to pay taxes in Italy. So if you're paying 7% on pension income, most likely that pension income is not going to be taxed in the US. However, if you pay 7% on some other income, which might be dividends or capital gains or things like that, there might still be a withholding tax in the US. It really depends on the type of income that 7% applies to. And also, it is extremely important to remember that the tax treaty is between Italy and the US. And so, with respect to your state, if you are still a resident of some state, there might be also some state taxes. So it's really on a state by state basis. But if you are obviously an Italian tax resident and you're no longer a US tax resident, there's not going to be a state tax, in
Right.
my experience. But please talk with your CPA. So that's pretty much about the 7%. I don't see a scenario where you will pay 7% and you will be also taxed in the US on the same income. However, there might be situations where that can happen, and my recommendation is to talk with your CPA to see how that would work and if it can work as a tax credit.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense because each situation has so many moving parts that it would be difficult to make a
Yeah,
statement. Okay. Okay, great. Now the
yeah.
other one was somebody wanted to know if Veterans Administration disability pay or disability pay or pension or whatever counts as a public pension under the treaty as well. He was just a little clear. I guess this person perhaps was receiving VA disability, injured, in the military.
Yeah.
And does that count as public pension as well for taxation purposes?
Yeah, so in general, when you get a pension because of public employment, it counts as public pension. Now, I'm not familiar with VA disability, like what the terms are. If there is a big distinction between disability insurance and is a disability pension, and some people refer to all of it as disability pension.
Right.
So if the disability that you are collecting is comes out of from a form of insurance. So to replace income that you no longer earn because of the disability, then that is taxable because that is a form of income replacement. If you, however, are receiving disability pension that is not related to any insurance contract, and that is just a pension paid because you served, and terms of service imply that upon being dismissed or terminating your service for whatever reason you receive a pension, then that would be a public pension which would not be taxable in Italy. And also, if it is a legally certified disability, meaning medical disabilities, disability, that would not be taxed in Italy, even if it was issued due to a private sector employment, because in Italy, medically certified disabilities, where you're certified that you cannot work and you have a disability, are not taxed.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So basically, Social Security disability, we've gone through this with several clients about the difference between Social Security disability and Social Security, payments that a person normally gets. So Social Security disability would not be taxed. Is that right?
Yes, if it is medically certified in Italy, there's something very similar, and Social Security disability. And when you collect that, it is not taxed. It's
Okay.
not subject to income tax. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Now,
pretty,
obviously, there are a million exceptions. However, if we're referring to like 100% disability, that's not taxed. There might be sometime a partial tax liability if you have a minor disability, and so. But yeah, in general, that's the pretty much it. But my recommendation is always to check the documents with an expert before just not reporting it, because it might be annoying to have to backpedal and report after the fact with penalties and things like that.
yeah, that makes great sense. Okay, well, those were the two questions that I had prior to us turning on the recording here. We had talked about talking about things that people don't know, and things like bringing cash over to Italy and what happens in this and that scenario. So, guys, we're looking at doing a video on all of the things that you don't know, and that you should know, and you could end up in a really uncomfortable situation if you didn't know. So stay tuned for that. Nick, did you have anything else you wanted to say to our guys? We so appreciate all of this wonderful information.
I appreciate the opportunity, absolutely, and I also am thankful for the information, the opportunity to share information that hopefully will help people. And sometimes people come to me and I ask, well, where do you get this information? They tell me, on ChatGPT, so it should be accurate. I said, yeah, but unfortunately, it is not. That ChatGPT feeds on whatever is on the web, and so definitely rely on reliable sources, verified sources before making and taking any major step.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And of course, we love your services. You're always right on the cusp of everything that's happening, and everything is up to date. My worry about ChatGPT is it goes back on stuff that's old, and even a few weeks can make a huge difference. So yeah, definitely
Yes,
check with the professionals,
definitely.
and really make sure you understand everything about everything before making a move. So, well, thanks again, Nick. We're really looking forward to this other one. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises even for us, but it's going to be very good information that people really need to know if they really want to move over stress free and make it a fun experience, which is always what we're aiming for. So, thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.